everyone, welcome back to the channel, and today I am joined by Chris as somewhat breaking news broke late yesterday, early today regarding the US Women's National Team's equal pay dispute that they have going on at the minute. It was dismissed in court over in America, basically just rejecting the players' claims that they were underpaid compared to their male counterparts, and it seems to have caused a little bit of a stir online at the minute, which is rightly so. But there's some very mixed. Well, what I saw, especially on Twitter, was some very mixed opinions regarding it all. Firstly, just what was your immediate, when you first saw it, what was your immediate thought process like?
Well, I knew it'd been rumbling on for a bit.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's kind of not even kind of. It is a landmark case in women's football when you consider things like Australia, and for the Matildas getting equal pay to the Socceroos. And I thought personally, that would be a bit of a watershed moment that you would then see a lot more progress in a lot more teams. And if the Americans had followed on with that, you wouldn't have had a bigger statement possible in women's football for them to get equal pay.
Yeah.
For me, the biggest surprise is not that it was rejected. I'll be honest with you. My biggest surprise was that it didn't even go to trial.
Yeah.
Now they are going to launch an appeal.
Yeah.
That is certainly within the intentions of the women's soccer team in America. But as I say, for me, the most staggering line of the entire story was that it didn't even get a trial, didn't even get a look at trial. We just said just before we came on, it's almost like the judge had it in their hands and just scrapped it up and just chucked it in the bin behind them without even taking a second thought. I mean, for you as well, was it the case of almost insulting, really, that it wasn't even given a trial?
Yeah, I think that's probably a good word to use, because obviously this happened last March, when they filed it, so it's been an ongoing thing. And then obviously they've they filed it, and then the whole thing was oh well, you've got the World Cup, you might not even win that, and then they go on and have an amazing tournament, win the fourth World Cup, and everyone was sort of that the ball was sort of in their court. Then it was yeah, we've done our bit, we've showed that we deserve it, now you've got to reply. And it's been sort of like you said, they've just looked at it, gone, no, we don't really want to deal with that, we'll just throw it away, we'll just say no, there's not enough evidence on it. And it's well, that's just sort of undermining the whole process of it all. You're not even giving it a chance, and you're not even giving, like you said, Australia women, they've got a 4-year deal with their federation now. They're going to be paid the same as their men's team. You've obviously got the Jamaican women's national team. They're saying we're not playing unless we get paid for it. So for US soccer, who have got the US women's national team are the best women's team in the world. For US soccer, and the courts just to not even acknowledge something as big as having equal pay, like you said, it's sort of you could sort of say it was insulting to some people. Obviously we're not American, we're not it's nothing to do with us.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure if it was England women, we'd be a bit more hold on a minute, what's going on? But then like you said, just for it to be thrown out, no trial, I just found that a bit bizarre.
I mean, when you look at the figures as well, I mean, we don't know the factors behind it. I don't know whether everything's world kind of put it in the back burner a little bit. But even if that was the case, I still wouldn't have expected coronavirus to be the case, or to be the reason why such an important case just got absolutely dismissed.
Yeah.
When you look at on the BBC, they say that they're seeking around 53 million in damages under the Equal Pay Act. I mean, that's obviously a lot of money straight away, and no wonder why they're going to appeal it when you talk about those kind of figures. And there is a general impression from the team that they are not just insulted, shocked, surprised, that there was just this complete lack of consideration for it even to be a case. Like, because it's been pretty much, the reason why it's been dismissed is because the judge has declared the case weak.
Yeah.
As in, the case has not got enough behind it to even warrant a trial.
That's really the worst thing. It's weak, and it's like, well, they've give you so many reasons as to why. Like they've said, on the basis of like when they first filed it, it was that US Soccer violated the Equal Pay Act by paying them less than members of the men's national team, and then the second one was that the federation discriminated against them under a title of the Civil Rights Act, specifically regarding like their workplace conditions. So like that must be pitches and training facilities and stuff like that. So they haven't just gone on a whim. Oh, we don't get paid enough, so we want to talk about it. Like they've looked into it. They know what they're asking for. So like they're not just doing it just to do it because they feel like they should do it because it's 2020. Do you know what I mean? Like, actually,
I'm half surprised Megan Rapinoe didn't walk into court just holding the 2 World Cups. Just
she did, and like I got from London 2012 as well.
Yeah. Just put them on the table and just walked out, because that would surprise me if she did something like that. But when you read a little bit further into it, that there's people talking about the language that's been used towards them as well, kind of almost in a discriminatory matter, saying that they have, the case hasn't got enough behind it because there's less ability in the women's game, using that as examples. I know, using that to warrant the men's, the men getting paid more. The thing that I've always said, certainly, the figure that's always stuck in my mind, I've mentioned it a few times on the podcast, is when the men got paid more, not just more, considerably more, for going out of the Brazil World Cup at the last 16 than the women got for winning in Canada. Now, we have to be brutally honest about this, and that it is more difficult for the men's team to win the Men's World Cup. There's no point in saying that it isn't, because when you look at the USA men's team, when they didn't qualify for Russia, that was stunning.
Yeah,
really, absolutely stunning, because of they've just been in the World Cup for so many years. In the North American zone, you would expect them to be better than the likes of Panama, Costa Rica. Those countries actually did qualify for the World Cup. And for them not to get through their qualification group was kind of in the opposite, well, basically like a kind of reverse sensation, if that makes sense, just utterly staggering to the men's football world. So it is more difficult for them in the men's World Cup. But whereas for the women, to win the Women's World Cup, yes, we are. We're in agreement that they are the best team. They are the best side in the world. But apart from 1 or 2 games in the group, the World Cup wasn't exactly a coast for them.
No.
For people to say, oh, the women's team, they'll just blow everyone away. Apart from beating Thailand 13-0, there weren't many games where you looked at them and thought they are head and shoulders above everyone else.
Yeah.
I mean, it's different to say they are better, and it's different to say that they'd blow everyone away, because Holland, England, Spain, France, they all took them very, very close.
Yeah, well, that France game, I remember watching that, and when France equalised, I was a bit like, oh, I think it might be over for US here, because obviously, because it was in France, and then with this being such a big game, I was like, oh, maybe they'll just tip it here. But then obviously they come back and win, and you're just thinking, nah, it's theirs now. And then when we got them in the semi-finals, and I was a bit, I was, as soon as we got drawn against them in the semi-finals, I was just like, yeah, this is just going to be really hard, isn't it?
Yeah.
There was the only glimmer of hope I had was when we equalised, and I was like, oh, maybe. And then when we got the penalty, and I was like, here we go. And then it all just went downhill from there. But
I mean, you end up talking about kind of valiant defeat, don't you? Obviously, with the disallowed goal and the penalty miss, but that's a topic for another day. But they'll, in terms of taking it to appeal, I think that's the right thing to do. But then you kind of question how are they going to go about it differently. If they appeal it, they can't just obviously just take the same case to court.
Yeah.
Because then the same case just, here's a new case. What's new about it? Absolutely nothing. It's the same case. Yeah. So obviously there does need to be planning now for them to really progress with this case, because when you look at the judge as well, reading an article from the US saying that also rules the players' claims that they do not, basically they're saying they don't receive equal treatment in terms of travel, training, housing, and other areas. And they're saying that those claims are too weak for the case to proceed.
Yeah.
So whether they need to work further into that and say, this is the evidence of why we don't get the same treatment, in terms of, just kind of take, photos of their houses or something like that, and just compare it to the men's team. It might literally be that simple.
Yeah.
That simple, yet possibly very, very effective. And it'll be interesting just to see, as I say, what steps they make to strengthen this case for the appeal.
Yeah.
Because it would have to be significant for me.
Oh, yeah, 100%, especially if that, if the initial bit's not even gone to trial and they've just scrapped it straight away. It is going to be very difficult for them to now sit down and be like, well, how do we make it better for us? How do we go to them and say, based on this, and this, you should listen to us? And it's like you said, you don't know how much more they can say about it. A spokesperson for the women's team said, "We are shocked and disappointed with today's decision, but we will not give up our hard work for equal pay. We are confident in our case and steadfast in our commitment to ensuring that girls and women will not be valued as lesser just because of their gender. We have learned that there are tremendous obstacles to change. We know that it takes bravery and courage and perseverance to stand up to them. We will appeal and press on. Words cannot express our gratitude to all who support us." So a lot of people are sort of looking at it as just the current squads wanting it to be better just for themselves, but they're not really in it just for themselves. They're in it for the next 20, 30, 40 years of women's soccer in America. That's what it's based upon. So if you take out the current team and you look at it for the future of women's football in America, it's sort of a blow for that. Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
I mean, women's football all around the world right now, given the situation, it does need to stick together, because there is arguably a bigger threat to clubs in the women's game than there is in the men's game, and that it's a very sad fact. Obviously, we saw what happened to AFC Fylde ladies. I was at AFC Fylde a few years ago, and saw their women's team actually when they started playing at Mill Farm as well. So obviously that's very sad to hear in terms of them not being able to function again, because then you look at their livelihood and everything like that. And going back to the US team, as I say, it's about sticking together, not just for now, it's about for future generations, because then girls can grow up in America and other countries believing that, as we stand right now, being women's football is a reasonable career. Of course it is.
Yeah.
But their mission, if you like, is to enable it to better themselves, become even better. Become even better in terms of their payment, because in a kind of brutal sense of the word, what do we do a job for? We do it for, yes, we hopefully all enjoy our jobs, but we do our jobs to get paid. We do our jobs to have a nice life.
Yeah.
And obviously for them, going forward, they'll want future generations to almost have what they haven't.
Yeah.
Really. I mean, the advances in women's football of the last 20 years, 20, 30 years are incredible. They are incredible. But they're looking obviously to forward it even more so. And who knows where this game will be in 20 years' time.
Yeah, exactly. Because look how far it's come just in the last 10 years. So never mind in 20 years down the line. But I know it's definitely one to keep an eye out on in the next couple of months and to see what happens, because it will be very interesting, because I doubt this women's team are just going to settle for the most basic of things.
No, even Tobin Heath saw on Twitter said they're not going to start giving up now.
Yeah, exactly.
So they'll be back.
It's probably just added more fuel to the fire for them. They've all right. Yeah. Well, you don't even want to. If you don't even want to, if you're just dismissing it straight away, we'll come at you with something else, something even bigger.
Yeah.
That
because my impression was, I know we mentioned Australia at the top of the podcast, but I thought it would be easier for America, given what Australia did.
Yeah, same. Yeah, I mean,
and it's just taken the complete opposite road.
Yeah, like Australian men obviously aren't the best men's team in the world.
Yeah.
Like the best USA men have done in a World Cup was back in like 1930 or something like that, and the women have won like 2 back-to-back. Like it's not just about comparing it to the performance in just that one competition. It's about comparing them in every competition and everything that they do, like the leagues as well and stuff like that. So.
Because it's different for the men in terms of the men's probably main chance of a trophy that they have won several times is like the Gold Cup for America. Obviously, when it's probably most of the time it is the final is them versus Mexico. You'll very rarely get a final that isn't the USA versus Mexico in the Gold Cup. Again, for Australia, the AFC or the Asian Cup, which they aren't always favourites for. You've got Japan, you've got South Korea, Qatar are the current champions, hosting their own World Cup, of course. And then the big test of the US men's team that the women will arguably point towards is hopefully when football gets back on track, of course, is the World Cup in 2026 when they're co-hosting it with Canada and Mexico.
Well, yeah, and like looking at that is like the big one. But then obviously there would have been like the Olympics this year. Like no one's ever won a World Cup and Olympic gold back to back, and that's what the women's team were going for. Obviously that's been pushed back to next year. They then won't have. It's obviously the Euros a year, so we'll have like international where they're obviously not a part of that, and then it's another World Cup again. So there's literally tournament after tournament for the next couple of years, both for men's and women's. So it's like it's probably not just a case of looking at the next few months, it's a case of looking at it for the next 4 years.
And even looking at a case of just, even with equal pay, kind of like equal treatment can come with that, because what you've just said then, I know the Euros are factored into that as well, but say for the women's team, that could be 3 out of 4 summers where they're actively playing competitive football.
Yeah.
After factoring their seasons in as well, when everything gets back up and running, and that is going to take a toll on anyone's body.
Well, I was watching Kelly O'Hara was on the Men in Blazers live Instagram a few nights ago, and one of the questions was, because the Olympics has been cancelled, is that sort of a good thing? Because now for the remainder, obviously their season goes throughout the summer, but they'll have a little bit more time to rest because they literally won a World Cup, and then like 2 or 3 weeks later they were back playing for their clubs up until like end of October. Had like a little bit of a break over Christmas and then back into like national team camp, because obviously if She Believes and then Olympics and all that stuff in between. So it's like they don't really get a lot of a break between tournaments, because most of the tournaments are hosted in the summer. That's when they're like middle of their season. So like it's the Olympics is sort of not being played this year, sort of come as a blessing towards them, but it's also a curse as well, because that was another tournament that they could show what they were made of, sort of type thing. Yeah. But yeah, like you're saying, their bodies are pushed to the limits, and with no time for rest in between. So that's like obviously a big factor to look at as well.
I mean, for European players, the thought of 5 tournaments in a row. I mean, look, we all love football.
Yeah.
5 consecutive summers of tournaments. Wow. Because I know there's a study into ACL injuries as well. And that the whole thought about spacing out tournaments could be a part of that. But five summers in a row for the European players, certainly.
Yeah.
There's loving football, and it's having and it could have a negative impact.
Yeah.
And it's about understanding that. But I'd just say for the women, whilst it could be a bit of a rest, it is a frustration for them in that this summer they would have been favourites going into it, and it would have been another case for them to strengthen their cause.
Yeah.
But it's interesting now as well because they can't afford to let what's going on stop them in terms of having a break.
Well,
because this now, how do you further your case in all that's going on?
Well, yeah.
So even that's a challenge that they probably wouldn't have seen coming. But as you say, I reckon after a bit of digging, after a bit of working on their case, I reckon you could be talking about an eruption in terms of when they go back with this. Because they know, and this isn't us criticising their case going for appeal. This is us saying that they'll know within themselves that it needs to be better. They'll know that when they take that case back, it needs to blow the judge out of the water for them literally not to be able to say no.
Yeah.
So that is a challenge. That's a challenge within itself.
Yeah, 100%. Well, hopefully over the next couple, it gives us something good to sort of chat about.
Yes.
And something to focus on, and it'll be interesting to see what the outcome is, because it could potentially go on until it could not be resolved until next year now, which is a long way away. So it's definitely something to keep an eye on. But thank you for joining me. I know it was very last minute that I texted.
No, pleasure as always.
Thank you everyone to watch. Remember to like the video, comment, subscribe. You've just set up a new podcast yourself, haven't you? Do you want to just...
Yes. We've set up a new podcast called The Football Chat. It does what it says in the tin. The first episode we just talked about why we love the beautiful game, and then the next few episodes we're going to focus on building a perfect player. So that's taking apart from each player. Or, left foot, right foot, heading, all those kind of things, and attribute it to one player who we think collectively would help to make the perfect player. So it's called it's called The Football Chat. We're on Spotify, so if you want to go and have a listen, much appreciated.
Yeah, I'll leave a link in the description if you want to go and check it out.
Thank you very much.
Well, thanks for watching, and we'll see you all next week with a brand new podcast.